On Christmas Eve, I saw a framed family portrait with my 9-year-old daughter's face cropped out completely. No one mentioned it. My daughter swallowed and went quiet. The next day, I handed my parents an envelope. They opened it and started screaming. I'm not someone who looks for offense in every corner. I'm a single mom, not a full-time detective. I don't have the energy to build conspiracy boards out of string and thumbtacks. Most days, I'm just trying to keep my kid fed, mostly clean and emotionally intact. So when I walked into my parents' living room on Christmas Eve and saw that frame above the fireplace, my first thought wasn't, they did this on purpose. My first thought was, because I'd seen that picture before. It was the grandparents with all the grandchildren shot, the one my mom loved because everyone was lined up and smiling and no one was blinking, which in our family counts as a minor miracle. It used to sit in a smaller frame on the side table by the lamp. I remembered it clearly because my dad had made a whole thing about getting everyone positioned just right, like he was directing a movie instead of corralling 5 kids and 2 adults who couldn't stop fussing with hair. Now it was bigger, new frame, glossy, center stage, fireplace placement, like it had achieved sainthood. And in this version, my daughter Ella wasn't there, not missing in the back, not standing behind someone's shoulder. She was cropped out, cleanly, carefully, like someone had taken their time. The background behind where her face used to be wasn't jagged or stretched. It was smoothed. The spacing was corrected. The whole thing had been reprinted. It was the kind of edit you do when you're not trying to hide the edit. You're trying to hide the person. My mom was in the kitchen, clinking dishes, calling out that dinner was almost ready. My dad was pulling off his boots like he'd just come in from the Yukon instead of his own driveway. My sister Nicole swept past me in a beige sweater that looked like it had never been exposed to a spilled drink in its life. My brother Eric was already on the couch with his phone, like sitting down was his Christmas tradition. Nicole's 2 daughters, Haley and Kenzie, were arguing about who got to sit closest to Grandma. Their brother Ethan was building a tower out of coasters. My brother's daughter Paige stood near the tree, calm and comfortable, like she already knew exactly where she belonged. Ella stopped in the doorway and looked up. I watched her face do the tiniest shift, just the smallest tightening around the mouth, like she'd tasted something sour and decided not to make a face because she didn't want anyone to notice. She swallowed, and then she went quiet. No one said, "Oh, we got a new print." No one said, "The old one was damaged." No one said anything at all. It was like the frame wasn't there. Like the empty space where my child should have been wasn't a screaming absence, but just decor. My mom called, "Shoes off! Come warm up!" I hung up our coats with hands that suddenly felt too large for my body. Ella's little scarf slipped off the hook and landed on the floor. She didn't bend to pick it up. I picked it up for her. Dinner was the usual. The same roast my mom made every year, the same rosemary smell, the same conversation loop that always landed back on Nicole. Haley's dance recital, Kenzie's gifted program, Ethan's adorable little jokes, Paige's good grades met with the kind of easy praise that didn't need to be earned twice. And Ella? Ella sat there with her fork in her hand, waiting for a moment to speak. She tried once, just once. She started to say something about a book she'd been reading. She'd been obsessed lately with those mysteries where kids solve things adults can't. When my dad cut in mid-sentence to ask Ethan if he wanted extra gravy, it wasn't shouted. It wasn't malicious in a way you can point to and report. It was worse. It was normal. My mom laughed at something Haley said. My dad told Paige she was such a good girl. Nicole leaned back and said, "I just love having everyone together." Eric said, "Yeah, family." Ella lowered her fork. After dinner, gifts came out. My mom made a show of it, handing out packages like she was hosting a charity gala. Nicole's kids opened things that were so specific it was almost impressive. Haley got the exact brand name dance bag she'd been talking about for weeks. Kenzie got a set of art markers that looked like they belonged in a museum gift shop. Ethan got a remote control car that was already halfway unboxed before anyone could finish saying, "Wow." Paige got a necklace with a little pea charm. My mom teared up like she'd just cured a disease. Then my mom handed Ella a bag. It was the kind of bag you get at a drugstore. Shiny, generic, printed with snowflakes that didn't quite match because the bag had clearly been made in July. Inside was a craft kit, unicorn-themed, glitter glue, sticker gems, a sparkle diary. Ella is not a sparkle diary kid. Ella likes chapter books and puzzles and looking up random facts about space because apparently my child was born 70 years old and curious. She stared at the bag for half a second, just long enough for me to feel my throat tighten. Then she smiled. The kind of smile kids do when they know the rules. "Thank you," she said softly. My mom beamed like she'd nailed it. I watched Ella fold tissue paper back into the bag like she was trying to undo taking up space. Later, after the house settled and everyone had migrated into that sugar coma haze, my mom offered us the guest room. Not your old room. Not you can sleep where you used to. The guest room. Beige sheets, floral curtains, a lamp that buzzed if you breathed near it. Ella climbed into bed without a word. I sat on the edge and brushed her hair the way I always do when I don't know what else to do. "Do you want to talk?" I asked, keeping my voice light. She shrugged. "It's okay." It wasn't. But she wasn't 9 because she wanted to be. She was 9 because that's how time works, and 9-year-olds learn fast what adults won't say out loud. I kissed her forehead and waited until her breathing shifted into sleep. Then I reached into my bag. The envelope was there, exactly where it had been all night. Thick, clean, like something official even before you open it. I turned it over in my hands once, twice. I didn't open it. I didn't reread anything. I didn't rehearse a speech. I just sat there, listening to the house creak and settle, and felt something in me settle too. In the morning, I would hand my parents that envelope, and they would scream. When people ask what it's like growing up in a family like mine, I always want to say, "Fine," because that's what you learn to say. You learn to smooth it over. You learn to laugh. You learn to shrug. You learn to be the person who doesn't make it weird. Nicole was always the celebration. She could breathe in a room and my mom would notice. She could get a B+ and my dad would say, "That's my girl," like she'd just won a Nobel Prize. I remember one Christmas when Nicole unwrapped a sweater and cried, actually cried, because it was the exact shade of pink she liked. My mom hugged her, my dad clapped, and everyone acted like the world had just become a better place because Nicole had received knitwear. I had gotten a scholarship letter that week. Not a small one. The kind of thing teachers pull you aside about. When I mentioned it at dinner, my dad nodded and said, "That's good." Then he turned to Nicole and asked if she wanted more mashed potatoes. I stared at my plate and felt that familiar sensation, like I'd stepped out of frame and no one had noticed. When I looked up, my mom gave me that look and said, "Don't make it weird." It became the family anthem. Don't make it weird when Nicole gets the new car. Don't make it weird when Eric gets praised for mowing the lawn once. Don't make it weird when you're the one people call when they need help. I became a single mom the way some people become a cautionary tale. Not because I'd done something wild and dramatic, but because life doesn't always follow the timeline your parents pick out for you. Ella's dad was there at first, and then he wasn't. We tried. We failed. It wasn't a soap opera. It was just done. My mom never said, "We're ashamed." My dad never said, "We don't accept her." They didn't have to. They said things like, "Well, this isn't how we pictured it." They said, "You made things complicated," when what they meant was, "You didn't give us a story we can brag about." So I worked. I worked nights because days were school pickups and homework and cleaning sticky fingerprints off everything I owned. I worked at the kitchen table with a laptop glowing in the dark while Ella slept in the next room, and I told myself the same thing over and over. No one is coming. You have to be enough. Somehow it started to work. Not in a glamorous way. Not in a look at my empire way. In a my bills are paid and my kid is safe way. That's when my parents came to me with the house. It was a Tuesday when my mom called, voice too bright, like she was trying to sell me something. "Can you come by?" she asked. "We need to talk." When I got there, my dad had papers spread out on the table like we were about to launch a legal defense. There was a letter with words like past due and final notice. They had a deadline. They had no good options. And suddenly, I was the solution. "We just need a temporary fix," my mom said quickly. "We'll get caught up." My dad added, "It's paperwork. That's all. A formality." The lender wanted the deed in the name of the person qualifying for the refinance. That person was me. My credit was decent. My income was stable. My life, for once, looked neat enough on paper to pass. So I signed. I sat at that same kitchen table where my scholarship letter had been ignored, and I signed documents that put my parents' house in my name. I kept copies, because I'm Megan, and I'm not reckless. I'm the kind of person who saves receipts. My mom hugged me after, eyes damp, voice soft. "Thank you," she said. "We'll take it from here. Next month." Next month became the running joke that stopped being funny. The first time I covered a payment, it was because my dad had a delay at work. The second time, my mom said, the car needed repairs. The third time, it was something else. Every time I asked when they'd start paying, I got the same answer dressed up in a new outfit. Soon, next month, after the holidays, once things settle. Years passed without anyone saying out loud what was happening. They didn't want to lose the house, and they didn't want to change their lives, and I didn't want to be the reason the family home fell apart. So I paid, and I told myself it was still temporary, and I kept waiting for the moment they'd recognize what I was doing. Waiting is a strange hobby, but it's one I got very good at. Standing under that portrait on Christmas Eve, watching Ella go quiet, I realized something with a clarity so sharp it almost hurt. I had been propping up this house for years, and inside it, my daughter had been edited out like she was a mistake someone was trying to erase. Christmas morning smelled like cinnamon and denial. My mom had the coffee going. My dad was in a good mood, the kind of good mood he gets when everything is going the way he likes it. Nicole had her phone out, angling for pictures that looked spontaneous but definitely weren't. Eric was wearing the same hoodie he always wears, like effort was optional. The portrait stayed above the fireplace, still unmentioned, still pretending. Ella sat cross-legged near the tree, hands folded in her lap, watching the other kids tear through wrapping paper. She smiled when Haley squealed. She clapped when Ethan made his car do a ridiculous little spin. She didn't look up. I didn't tell her to. I didn't nudge her into being cheerful for other people's comfort. When there was a natural pause, when my mom was refilling mugs and my dad was making a joke about how he should have bought stock in batteries, I reached into my bag. The envelope felt heavier than paper should. I handed it to my parents like I was passing a plate. My mom looked down at it, frowning like it might be a bill. "What's this?" "It's from me," I said. My dad smiled. "You didn't have to get us anything." I nodded. "I know." My mom's fingers slid under the flap. She didn't ask again. She didn't wait. She opened it like she had the right. The second her eyes hit the first page, the room changed. My dad leaned in. My mom's face tightened. Her mouth opened and closed once like she was trying to find the correct tone to use. Then my dad's voice rose. "What is this?" My mom's voice followed, higher, sharper. "Megan, no, no!" Nicole sat up straighter. "What's going on?" Eric frowned. "Megan, what did you do?" My dad slapped the papers down like they'd burned him. "This is our house," he snapped. My mom's hands were shaking now, not with sadness, with anger. "We asked you for a favor." My dad's voice cut through the room. "You can't do this. Not on Christmas." Nicole shook her head like I'd personally ruined her holiday photo set. "This is insane." Eric's voice went flat. "You always do this. You always have to make it weird." I looked at Ella. She was watching me, not with panic, with that careful stillness kids get when they're bracing. I kept my voice low, controlled. "I'm not doing this to you," I said, looking at my parents. "You've been doing this to me for years." My mom's eyes flashed. "After everything?" "After everything," I repeated softly. "Exactly." Nicole started talking over me, something about timing and how this was unhinged. Eric added that I was being dramatic, because of course he did. I didn't argue about the portrait. I didn't point at the fireplace like a courtroom lawyer. I said one thing, the only thing that mattered. "I'm done funding a house where my child is being erased." Then I stood, put my hand on Ella's shoulder, and helped her up. My mom shouted my name like she could pull me back by force of sound. My dad yelled something about gratitude. Nicole called me cruel. Eric said, "If you walk out, don't bother coming back." Ella's hand found mine, small and warm and steady. We walked out anyway. The cold air outside felt clean. We got into the car. I started the engine. Ella stared out the window, silent. Halfway down the street, my phone buzzed. Then again. Then again. By the time we pulled into our apartment parking lot, there were missed calls, voicemails, texts, then a message from a cousin I hadn't heard from in months. "Is it true you stole the house?" A second message popped up from my aunt. "Your mom says you tricked them into signing. Please tell me that's not true." And then the family group chat lit up like a Christmas tree. Nicole's name appeared. Eric's name appeared. Words started flying. Ella glanced at my phone when it buzzed again, and I watched her swallow. I turned the screen face down. "Hey," I said gently. "Let's go inside. Hot chocolate?" She nodded once. I told myself I could handle the noise. I just had to keep it from reaching her. It took a few days for the adrenaline to drain out of my bones. A few days of me ignoring voicemails, silencing the group chat, and answering Ella's questions in careful pieces. "Are Grandma and Grandpa mad?" "Yes," I said. "But grown-ups being mad doesn't mean you did anything wrong." "Did I do something wrong?" I swallowed that rage back down because it belonged to me, not her. "No," I said. "Not ever." On the fourth day, there was a knock at my door. Not the friendly neighbor knock, not the package delivery knock, the official kind. I opened it and saw a police officer standing in my hallway. My stomach dropped so fast it felt like my body forgot how gravity works. "Ma'am," he said, professional and neutral. "Are you Ms. Hensley?" He checked a small notepad. "Megan Hensley?" "Yes," I said, and my voice came out steadier than I felt. "We need to ask you a few questions." The hallway suddenly felt too small, too exposed. My apartment behind me looked like a child's home, which it was, and the idea of anything threatening crossing that threshold made my skin go cold. The officer glanced past me just slightly. "Is there anyone else in the home?" "My daughter," I said. "She's in her room." He nodded once. "Okay, we're following up on a complaint. Your parents contacted us." I blinked. About what? The officer looked down again. They're alleging fraud. They're claiming you tricked them into signing paperwork and that you took their house. For a second, I couldn't speak. Not because I didn't understand, because I did. It was just unreal to hear it said out loud by someone wearing a badge. I didn't trick anyone, I said finally. He asked questions, practical ones. When did the title transfer happen? What was the arrangement? Did they understand? Were there messages? Was an attorney involved? I answered carefully, factually. I told him I had documents. I told him the house was in my name. I told him I could provide proof. He took notes. At the end, he said something that sounded reasonable and still landed like a weight. This may end up being a civil matter, he said, but we have to document the allegation. When he left, I shut the door and leaned my forehead against it for a second, breathing like I'd just run a mile. Then I stood up straight before Ella could see me shaking. I walked into her room where she was sitting on the floor with a book open, pretending she hadn't been listening. Hey, I said softly. You okay? She nodded too fast. Was that about us? It's grown-up paperwork, I said, keeping my voice calm. You're safe. She stared at the page without reading it. I made hot chocolate and put on a movie and sat beside her on the couch like my body wasn't still humming with anger. A week later, the letter came. Heavy paper. Expensive letterhead. Kessler Law Group. I didn't know Mr. Kessler, but I could feel his personality through the envelope. Crisp. Confident. Designed to intimidate. The letter accused me of deception, of undue influence, of taking advantage of trust and age. It demanded I stop harassing my parents with eviction proceedings. It threatened further action. It gave me a deadline like I was a child who'd missed homework. I read it once. Then again, slower, because fear makes you reread things like the words might change. Then I did what I should have done years ago. I stopped handling my family like it was a personal project I could fix if I just tried harder. I called Ms. Harper, the lawyer I'd been trying not to need. Ms. Harper's office was quiet, in a way my parents' house never was. No performative cheer, no hovering, just a woman with calm eyes who listened without flinching when I said, "My parents called the police." She didn't gasp. She didn't judge. She didn't say, "But they're your parents." She asked, "Do you have documents?" I slid a folder across her desk. I had texts, emails, the ones my mom and dad had sent when they were panicking and needed my signature. "We need you to do this in your name for the refinance. It's just a formality. We'll handle the payments next month." I had the closing documents, the copies I'd kept because I keep copies, and I had the payment trail, years of it. The temporary help that had quietly turned into my money, month after month, keeping their roof overhead. Ms. Harper flipped through everything with a kind of calm that felt like oxygen. "They're claiming I tricked them," I said, and my voice cracked on the last word, because it was still my parents, and it was still a betrayal even if it wasn't surprising. Ms. Harper looked up. "We can respond to that." "Do we go to court?" I asked. "Not necessarily," she said. "A lot of people stop pushing once they realize what's going to come out." She sent a response to Mr. Kessler. She didn't write a speech. She wrote a fact pattern, and then something shifted. Not immediately, not cleanly, but I felt it. Mr. Kessler's tone softened. Deadlines became requests. Threats became inquiries. Silence stretched longer between messages. It was like watching someone realize the story they were selling wasn't going to hold. The legal pressure started to back off. The social pressure, though, that got worse. Because when people can't win with paperwork, they try to win with shame. The family group chat turned into a trial. Nicole posted that I was suing our parents, which I wasn't, but accuracy has never been her hobby. Eric chimed in with something about how Dad did everything for us, which was hilarious because Dad couldn't even remember my scholarship. Relatives piled on with opinions and Bible verses and the kind of moral outrage people love when it doesn't cost them anything. And Ella was watching me. Maybe not every word, but enough. Enough to see my jaw clench when my phone buzzed. Enough to hear my tone go tight when I said, "It's fine." And it wasn't. So I stopped. I didn't argue point by point. I didn't explain my childhood. I didn't beg for fairness. I waited until the chat hit peak volume, and then I posted something short. 2 screenshots of my mom's messages calling it a formality. 1 screenshot of my dad asking if I could cover this month and promising next month for sure. And 1 clean proof of the payment history. Not a story, not a rant, just years stacked in a line. Then I set my phone down and made dinner for my child. When I picked it up an hour later, the chat was quiet. Not quiet because they understood. Quiet because there was nothing left to say without looking like a liar. A few private messages had come in. "I'm sorry. I didn't know. I can't believe they did that." I didn't respond to most of them, not because I was angry, because I was tired, and because Ella was sitting at the table next to me, coloring, humming softly under her breath for the first time in days. That mattered more than winning anyone's approval. Time does what it always does. It moves forward whether people behave or not. My parents moved out. I didn't hear it from them. Of course I didn't. I heard it from my aunt, who called like she was delivering weather. "They're in a little place now," she said carefully. "A rental." I pictured my mom in a small kitchen with no fireplace to hang a portrait above. I pictured my dad in a living room with thin walls and neighbors who didn't care about his opinions. I didn't feel triumph. I felt quiet. Nicole called me 2 weeks after that. Her voice was softer than usual, which on Nicole is a full personality shift. "We should talk," she said. Eric texted, something vague about moving forward. I could hear the subtext without effort. Now that my parents' story had collapsed in front of everyone, being on their side wasn't socially convenient anymore. Now reconciliation was a brand refresh. I didn't yell. I didn't write an essay. I said, "No, thank you," and I meant it. Then Ella and I moved into the house. I carried in the first box, set it down, and did the thing you do in a new place. Looked around. The portrait was still above the fireplace, still glossy, still wrong. I stood there for a second, Ella beside me, and I felt something in my chest loosen. Not rage, not grief, just release. I took it down. No ceremony, no dramatic music. Just hands on a frame, lifting it off the wall, setting it face down on the floor. Ella watched quietly. "What are you going to do with it?" she asked. "I'm going to get rid of it," I said. She nodded like that made sense. Like a child understands more than adults give them credit for. We painted the living room a warm color that didn't feel like my mom's taste. We cleared out furniture that had held too many holidays that didn't belong to me. We opened windows and let the air change. Ella picked her room. She ran from one bedroom to the other like she was finally allowed to choose something. She laughed, loud, unself-conscious. I hung a new photo above the fireplace. Just me and Ella, standing in front of the house with paint samples in our hands, both of us smiling like we hadn't had to fight for our own existence. No one edited. No one cropped. No one erased. And in the quiet that followed, real quiet, the kind that doesn't have a threat underneath it, I realized what I'd actually done. I hadn't just taken back a house. I'd ended a pattern. Ella didn't have to learn how to swallow her feelings to keep the peace, because I finally stopped asking her to live inside a family that required her to disappear, and that, more than the deed, More than the renovations, more than the silence in the group chat, was the only thing that ever mattered. So tell me, did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more. My sister deleted my 11-year-old's high-stakes admission project, the one she spent 5 months working on, just hours before the deadline. Screens are evil, my sister said casually. You'll thank us later, my mother added. I didn't shout. I did this. 3 weeks later, their faces went pale. If anyone had asked me that night how my day was going, I would have said fine. In that automatic, lying-through-your-teeth way tired moms say it. I was just driving over to Mom and Dad's to pick my daughter Mia up. Nothing dramatic. Nothing unusual. Except the moment I stepped out of the car, I felt it. That wrongness. Like the last note of a song was off-key, but everyone kept pretending it wasn't. My nephew Ryan was outside in the driveway throwing a ball with some kid I didn't recognize. He glanced at me, then looked away like he had somewhere more important to be. Fine. Whatever. 11-year-old boys are allergic to eye contact. But Mia wasn't there. And that was the first crack. I walked into the house, and Mom practically pounced. "Oh, Erica, thank God you're here," she said, pressing a hand to her chest like she'd been through some war. "Your daughter has been impossible today." I froze. "Where's Mia?" "Locked herself in the bathroom," Vanessa answered, stepping out from the living room like she'd been waiting for her cue. Her voice had that sharp, triumphant edge she gets when she thinks she's right. Spoiler, she always thinks she's right. Dad didn't even look up from whatever he was stirring on the stove. "She threw a tantrum. Over a computer. It's not normal." My stomach clenched. "What do you mean, a computer?" Mom waved her hand. "Sweetie, she was glued to that screen all day. We took it away. She needs to learn to be a kid again." Vanessa nodded with faux wisdom. "Honestly, Erica, she's addicted. It's not healthy. We were doing you a favor." "Oh, a favor. Right. Like setting fire to your house to help with heating." "Where is she?" "Bathroom," Vanessa said. "Crying, screaming, total meltdown." That did it. I didn't bother arguing. I knew my child. Mia didn't melt down. She didn't withdraw. She got quiet when overwhelmed, which was worse. I walked down the hallway, each step louder than it needed to be. I knocked. "Mia? It's me." A choked sob came back. Not a tantrum. Not even close. "Sweetheart, open the door." A tiny click. The door opened an inch. Then a little more. Mia stood there with her laptop clutched against her chest like it was a wounded animal. Her face was blotchy and wet, her whole body shaking. My heart dropped. "Mom," she whispered, and the word cracked in the middle. They deleted it." I crouched down. "Deleted what, baby?" She burst into fresh tears. "My project. My whole project. They took my laptop and I tried to tell them, but they said screens were bad and I needed to go outside, and then Aunt Vanessa said she deleted everything I had open because she thought it was games, and Mom, it's gone. All of it. 5 months. Gone." The world went completely still, like a vacuum. Like nothing existed except Mia's shattered voice. I pulled her into me and stood, holding onto her because I wasn't sure which one of us might collapse. "Show me," I said, trying to keep my voice level, even though I could taste metal in my mouth. We walked back into the dining room where Vanessa stood like she was waiting for applause. "Oh, Erica, don't overreact," she said, rolling her eyes. "I deleted whatever she had open. Kids don't need that much screen time. You should be thanking me." Mom nodded. "Exactly. It was for her own good. For her own—" I couldn't finish that sentence. There were too many possible endings, all of them involving profanity. Mia sat at the table and opened the laptop with shaky fingers. clicked the folder, clicked again and again. Empty, empty, empty. She let out this quiet, broken sound, like she'd been punched in the chest but didn't have the air to cry for real. Vanessa shrugged. She'll get over it. It's just files, not the end of the world. Not the end of the world. For her. Of course. I stared at her, and something inside me, something I'd kept folded and quiet for years, lifted its head. Mia touched my arm. Mom, what do I do? The deadline's tomorrow morning. Her voice was so small I almost didn't hear it. I put my hand over hers. We'll figure it out. Vanessa smirked in the doorway. Honestly, Erica, if she's crying like this over a computer, maybe it's good we intervened. Kids these days need grounding. Grounding. Right. I looked at her. Really looked. And Mom. And Dad. Standing together, united in their smug certainty, as if they hadn't just gutted an 11-year-old's future. At the time, I thought they were just ignorant, careless, dismissive, maybe cruel, but nothing more. I didn't know yet. I didn't know how deep the betrayal went. I didn't know what they were hiding. I didn't know how far they'd already gone. Not then, but I'd find out soon enough. And what I discovered in the weeks that followed would change everything. I didn't tell Mia this part that night. Honestly, I didn't want her to see how much it shook me. But as I drove home with her sobbing in the back seat, clutching her empty laptop like a broken limb, one truth kept burning through my skull. They didn't just delete files. They deleted her future. 5 months ago, Mia got the packet for the scholarship admission project. Not a cute little write about your favorite animal assignment. No, this was the kind of project private schools use to decide which kids were worth investing in. The kind of thing parents brag about on Facebook for 2 years straight. The kind of opportunity my daughter, a shy, brilliant, STEM-obsessed kid, had been preparing for like it was her Olympic event. It was writing, research, coding, presentation design, creativity, logic. The whole academic buffet. And Mia had devoured every inch of it. Voluntarily, joyfully. Meanwhile, Ryan spent that time leveling up in whatever game he was obsessed with that week. Vanessa called that normal childhood development. But here's the thing. My family has a long history of breaking things. This time, they just broke something that belonged to a mother who's finally done being polite. And if I wanted to understand how they became experts at pretending this behavior was normal, I had to rewind. Growing up, I was always the other daughter. Vanessa could set the house on fire, and Mom would explain why the matchstick had provoked her. Meanwhile, if I breathed wrong, I'd get a lecture about attitude. My entire childhood was one long, "Why can't you be more like your sister?" soundtrack. And the sick thing? I believed them. I believed I was the problem. Vanessa was the golden one. I was the one who needed to try harder. There was never a moment, not one, where anyone chose me. By adulthood, I should have grown out of it, right? You'd think motherhood and a mortgage would earn me a graduation certificate from dysfunctional family academy. But nope. The pattern just evolved. Vanessa became the perfect mother with the perfect son. I became the background utensil whose job was to smile, help, and accept criticism while they praised their living room shrine to Ryan's achievements. He got a B in math. He's gifted. Meanwhile, Mia could cure cancer and they'd ask if she remembered to say thank you. I spent years brushing it off. It's just family, I'd tell my husband Daniel. They don't mean anything by it. I'm probably imagining it. But deep down, I knew the truth. And the truth tasted a lot like bile. When the scholarship competition was announced, both kids were excited. Something they could do together, supposedly. Ryan made a Canva slide and got bored after an hour. He announced at dinner that he was dropping out because it's dumb. Vanessa praised his self-awareness. Mia, meanwhile, lit up like someone plugged her into a generator. She spent 5 months building something incredible. She never complained, never bragged. She was excited. And my parents knew, Vanessa knew, everyone knew how much work she'd poured into it. Which is why, when they took her laptop and deleted everything, I thought, naively, that it was just ignorance. Just them not understanding. Just them being careless. I told myself they didn't mean to destroy her chances. They didn't think it through. They just didn't understand how important it was. Back then, that's genuinely what I believed. But the truth? The truth crawled in later. Slow, ugly, heavy. And every new piece of information felt like a bruise forming under the skin. We didn't talk on the drive home. Not because I didn't want to, but because Mia was sitting in the back seat like someone had unplugged her soul, arms wrapped around her laptop, eyes staring at nothing, breathing too quiet. By the time we stepped through the front door, my chest hurt, like an actual physical ache, the kind only rage and helplessness can make. Mia sat on the living room rug and opened the laptop before I'd even taken my shoes off. "Okay," I said softly. "Let's just look." She clicked the project folder. Still empty. She swallowed hard. Maybe it's in the trash?" I suggested, kneeling beside her. My voice was too bright, like a kindergarten teacher trying to distract a child from a gaping wound. Mia clicked. Trash. Empty. Her lip trembled. Why would she empty the trash? Who empties the trash? "Apparently your aunt," I muttered. Dry humor. My only survival mechanism. She made a choking noise. Half sob, half laugh. Like her last nerve had snapped in half. "Okay." I tried again. "Okay, let's think. Maybe it's backed up somewhere." Mia blinked at me, eyes huge and terrified. "Where?" I didn't have a clue, but moms aren't allowed to say "I don't know" during crises. "Maybe in your email," I said. "Did you ever send anything to your teacher?" Mia opened her email, scrolled. For a moment I held my breath so hard I thought I'd explode. Then Mia whispered, "Mom, look." An attachment. A file. Old. Incomplete. But real. The January version. Not the final one. Not even close. But something. Mia's shoulders sagged with relief and horror at the same time. "This is all we have," she said quietly. And somehow, that was worse. I sat down on the floor next to her. "We'll rebuild it." She shook her head. "Mom, it's too much. It took months." I put my hand over hers. "Then we'll do months in a night." She looked up at me. The tiny, exhausted tilt of her chin nearly destroyed me. But she nodded. We opened the old file. And the real work began. The first hour was mostly tears. Mia's, mine. Both of ours, hard to tell. She'd scroll down and gasp, "I wrote a whole section here. I can't remember it." And then crumble. Or, "I had charts here. I had diagrams." Before burying her face in her hands. Every time she cried, something inside me cracked. And every time something cracked, something else hardened. Vanessa hadn't just deleted files. She'd deleted pieces of my daughter's confidence, one click at a time. Around midnight, we had about 1/4 of the project reconstructed. It looked like a skeleton, recognizable, but sad and bare. Mia stared at the empty sections like they were crime scenes. "I hate this," she said softly. "It's not good. It's not the same." "No," I said. "It's not." She blinked at me like she wasn't expecting honesty. "But it's still yours," I added. "And we're still submitting something. We're not letting them take that too." She wiped her nose on her sleeve. "What if it's not enough?" "It'll be enough to prove you showed up," I said. "And sometimes that's half the war." She snorted. That's not comforting. Good, I said. It wasn't meant to be comforting. It's meant to be true. She actually laughed. A tiny, exhausted puff of a laugh. Then she kept typing. Around 2 a.m., she hit a wall. Her fingers froze above the keys. She whispered, "Mom, I can't remember the last part. The whole ending. It's gone." Her voice sounded like glass cracking. I gently pulled the laptop toward me. "Let me try." I typed until my eyes burned, badly, awkwardly, like a raccoon trying to write a thesis. She leaned on my shoulder, reading silently, eyebrows pinched in pain. "It's not what I wrote," she murmured. "I know," I said. "But we'll fix it." She didn't believe me. I barely believed myself. By 4 a.m., she was slumped sideways against me, cheeks sticky with old tears. Her little hands rested on the keyboard like they were too tired to try anymore. I kept typing, and typing, and deleting, and typing again. Somewhere around 6 a.m., Mia fell asleep curled against my hip. I didn't dare move. At 7:52 a.m., she woke up long enough to hit submit. Then she whispered, "I don't even want to know the result." The next 2 weeks were long, quiet, and filled with the kind of tension you feel in waiting rooms. Even my husband moved more gently, like the air around Mia might break if touched wrong. But the silence was worse than crying, worse than rage. It was the silence of a child who'd lost something she built with her entire heart. And I was waiting for something too. The moment my parents or Vanessa would show a flicker of remorse. A crack. A hint of guilt. Nothing. They didn't call. They didn't text. They didn't check on Mia. They moved on like they'd simply cleaned out a junk drawer. Like nothing significant had happened. And that silence was its own kind of answer. Something was off. Something was wrong. Something didn't add up. But I kept pushing the thought away, because the alternative, the darker explanation, was too painful to consider. Not yet. 2 weeks later, Mia walked into the kitchen holding her Chromebook like she'd found a bomb. "Mom," she said, "they posted the finalists." I dried my hands and took the laptop. Her name wasn't there. Ryan's was. I stopped breathing. I couldn't blink. I couldn't speak. It felt like someone opened the front door of my brain and punched me in the face. Mia stared at the ground. He didn't even want to keep going. I swallowed. My mouth tasted like metal. Let's see the description." She clicked. I read. The back of my neck prickled. My stomach dropped. The room tilted. The project topic, the formatting, the phrasing, the concept. I knew it. I had read it. Lived through it. Because Mia wrote it. "Mia," I whispered. I don't know what this means yet. But something isn't right." I drove to my parents' house with Mia beside me, silent and trembling. Vanessa opened the door like she'd been practicing her expression in the mirror, sympathetic, condescending, and smug all at once. "Oh, Erica," she said. "What's up?" I didn't answer. I walked past her. Mom and Dad were in the living room, pretending to be surprised. "What's going on?" Dad asked. I held up the flyer. "Explain this." Mom squinted. "Oh, Ryan got in. Isn't that great?" "Where did his project come from?" I asked. Dad frowned. "Are you accusing us of something?" "I'm asking," I said, "what he submitted." Vanessa's smile flickered. A crack. A glitch. Then she smoothed it over. "You're being ridiculous," she said. "Mia is upset she didn't get picked. You're feeding it." Mia stepped behind me, gripping my shirt. I turned to Vanessa. "Tell me the truth." She crossed her arms. "There's nothing to tell." Lie. Mom clasped her hands. "Erica, don't ruin this for Ryan." And there it was. The slip. the truth buried inside the phrasing. Ruin what? I asked quietly. No one answered. I walked out. That night, after Mia was finally asleep, I sent the email. I attached the old draft screenshots, dates, timestamps, everything we still had. No accusations, just facts. The kind that cut deeper than any insult. The committee replied in the morning, "We will review this." That was it. No promises, no reassurance. But I didn't need reassurance. I just needed the truth. 2 days later, the school posted a flyer. Finalist presentations. Open to the public. Ryan's name was at the top. Vanessa texted me, "Don't come. Seriously, don't embarrass yourself." I stared at the message. Then I turned my phone off. I wasn't planning to embarrass myself, but someone else was about to be embarrassed. And they had no idea what was coming. If you've never walked into an auditorium knowing a bomb is going to go off, but no one else realizes they're standing 5 feet from the blast radius, let me tell you, it's a special kind of adrenaline. Mia and I stepped through the doors, and the air practically crackled. People chatting, programs rustling, families taking photos. Normal, innocent chaos. Meanwhile, I felt like I was walking in with a live grenade tucked under my arm. Vanessa spotted us first. Her face pinched like she'd bitten a lemon dipped in battery acid. She whispered something to her husband Trevor, who looked like he wanted to dissolve into the chair, and then hissed across the aisle, "I told you not to come." I smiled sweetly. "Oh, Vanessa, you know I never listened to you." Mom whipped around. "Erica, don't start." Dad followed with, "Let's keep things civil today." Civil? Right. Apparently stealing a child's 5-month project and passing it off as your son's is the new definition of civil. Mia squeezed my hand. She looked nervous but strangely composed, like she'd decided she'd rather face a firing squad than be afraid of Vanessa ever again. Good. She was growing up beautifully. Ryan's name was called halfway through the program. He walked on stage looking like someone had shoved him there with a cattle prod. Pale, sweaty, eyes darting everywhere. I almost felt bad for him. Almost, until I remembered the night Mia cried herself sick because her entire future was wiped out by adults who thought she didn't matter. He cleared his throat into the mic. "This is, my project. It's about community, things, improving stuff. Inspirational." He clicked to the next slide like it might explode in his hands. Judges leaned forward, clearly confused when the boy who supposedly created a multi-layer urban planning model couldn't explain what a community anchor point was. His voice shook. It's like people and things. Professor-level analysis. Then a judge asked, "What was the most challenging part of your research process?" Ryan froze. He looked at Vanessa like he expected her to run on stage and rescue him. She stared back, smiling at him like an airbrushed refrigerator magnet. Then Mia raised her hand. Not timidly, not reluctantly, like a girl who had been quiet long enough. A judge blinked at her. "Yes?" Mia stood. Her voice trembled for 1 second. Just one, before she steadied. "You're asking about the research process?" she said. "For this project?" Ryan's eyes widened. Vanessa's head snapped toward us so fast I heard something crack. The judge nodded slowly. "Yes?" Mia launched into an explanation so clean, sharp, and articulate that the entire auditorium seemed to lean in. She described demographic mapping, survey modeling, community use patterns, all the things she worked on for months. She spoke like someone who breathed the material. Ryan spoke like someone who had learned English yesterday. A wave of murmurs washed through the crowd. Vanessa hissed, "Sit down, Mia." Mom added, "This is embarrassing." Dad muttered, "Such a show-off." I ignored them. By the time Mia finished, the judges exchanged looks. The kind of looks that said, "Ah, we see exactly what happened here." One of them stood. "Could we see both families backstage, please?" Vanessa's face went corpse white. Trevor's soul left his body. Mom clutched her purse like she might throw it at someone. We followed the judges into a side room where one of them, Dr. Harris, folded his hands. "We have reason to believe this project was not created by Ryan." Silence. Thick. Electric. I unlocked my phone, pulled up the drafts, the timestamps, the emails. "This is Mia's work," I said. "Every version, every step." Vanessa lunged forward. "That is a lie! Erica manipulated those. She taught Mia to say those things." Dr. Harris raised an eyebrow. "You're alleging fabrication?" "Yes!" Vanessa shrieked. "Yes! They stole my son's work!" My mother, who apparently followed us into the room without invitation, chimed in. "Erica always wants attention. She's making Mia lie." Dad nodded. "This is harassment. Our family won't be slandered." And then a judge quietly asked Ryan, "Did you make this project?" Ryan stared at the floor. His chin quivered. His hands shook. "Ryan," Mia whispered softly. "It's okay," Vanessa snapped. "Don't talk to him!" Ryan broke. "Mom made me," he sobbed. "She said Mia doesn't deserve everything. She said I had to win. She said she'd be disappointed if I didn't. I didn't even want the scholarship." Trevor closed his eyes like he was begging God to erase his entire marriage. Dr. Harris exhaled slowly. "That settles it." Vanessa sputtered. "He's lying. He's being manipulated. Dr. Harris raised his hand. "Ryan is disqualified. Effective immediately." Mom gasped like he'd announced the earth was ending. "And," he added, "because this scholarship carries financial value, we are required to file an official fraud report." Vanessa's mouth hung open. Trevor whispered, "Oh my God." Mom grabbed Dad's arm. "Do something." Dad answered, "What? Bribe them?" For once, he sounded sane. "And," Dr. Harris continued, "given the testimonies and the pressure placed on Ryan, we are referring this to CPS for review." Vanessa looked like someone had unplugged her brain. I felt a strange calm settle over me. Not joy, not triumph, just a deep, exhausted relief that someone, finally, saw what my family really was. A judge turned to Mia. "You are the rightful creator. You will receive the scholarship." Mia's eyes filled. Not with the same tears she'd cried in that bathroom weeks ago. These were different. She nodded quietly. "It's been 6 months, and every morning Mia heads into school with a confidence I used to only see in glimpses. She's in the gifted program now, the one the scholarship earned her a spot in. And she talks about it like it's her second home. She comes back every day with things I don't fully understand. Half-built engineering prototypes, research assignments that look like graduate-level work, group projects with kids who love learning as much as she does. She has friends who challenge her, teachers who actually see her, and a spark I was terrified had died the night her laptop was wiped. And she's happy. Really, truly happy. My family, their timeline looks different. Ryan ended up switching schools. Mutual decision, Vanessa claims, even though every parent in their old district knows the truth. Fraud sticks. Even at the new school, people whisper. Invitations dried up fast. Vanessa now has an official fraud note on her record. Nothing dramatic, but enough to block certain jobs and shred her PTA ambitions. CPS still checks in from time to time after what Ryan confessed. Mom and Dad lost most of their social circle. Turns out sabotaging a child doesn't make you very popular at potlucks. We're no contact now. Peaceful. Quiet. Honestly, better. Mia is thriving. Their lives, not so much. So what do you think? Did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more.